I'm Stephanie King Mattingly.
Okay.
In the fall, I teach public speaking, and in the fall, our final project was a commemorative speech. So instead of having them create a graduation speech, I asked them to do what I called COVID-19 commentaries. And what they did was they took an app on their phone and recorded, quote unquote, a speech. But really, what was the year like for them? What was it like at school? What happened in their families? And the stories that came out of there were just so moving. Now I'm in the spring and I've decided to do a similar project. I'm not sure if it'll be on the phone app, but actually they have actually started vlogging. Every weekend they're vlogging all the way to the end of the semester. So I started looking around in the fall and I said, who on this campus is doing something? And I discovered that in our library, there's something called the COVID-19 Community Archiving Project.
Oh, wow.
But no one had submitted anything since last April. So I was like, here I come. All of those moments, those speeches, those comments went into the project. So my mind just will not stop turning because it seems like such an opportunity for the university to perhaps partner with the business community and just citizens right in the area where the school is located. And here's how. By inviting the community to tell their stories. And our school would become a repository of, yes, the pain, but also the triumphs. And I see that as an investment in the community and them trusting us with their personal stories. We had a TV news story on the project already. So I just see all kinds of possibilities, and I don't know how realistic they are because I've never done anything on that scale. But is this something you would call community engaged scholarship? And by the way, I'm an adjunct.
Okay. Yes, I see that it is. And so, we're going to actually go through in a little bit something called products of scholarship. And I know most faculty tend to think about, papers and books, but really products of scholarship are much broader than that. And so I think that oral histories and the stories behind them and the reflections behind them are critical. So because they speak to the human condition. I know how stories were for me in Louisiana living through Hurricane Katrina. I think stories can deliver us, right? They can lift us up or they can crush us. I mean, depending on, what you're, unfortunately, if you have, I think it's one of those things that can be used for wonderful intent and potentially can be used for not so wonderful intent or silencing, and so I think the fact that that you're working on being really deliberate about trying to get your students to reflect on what they're going through, and then maybe potentially more broadly, like what does that say about the human experience and the ability to overcome great difficulty.
And Mary Beth, just as we close, I want you to know that I did expand it to faculty because I don't believe we hear enough about what they have had to go through in making these adjustments in higher education.
Yeah, and I think that information can be really important. I mean, I think anytime something external forces massive change quickly, I think that the adaptability of and the human condition are just timeless, important things that we all need to remember. And so I would encourage you, there's a lot of literature, I think, out there over time on oral history projects that you might be able to draw from. And then there is a guy named Talmadge, is his full name, but he goes by Tal Stanley.
Okay.
He's a professor at William and Mary College in Virginia. And he is an amazing storyteller and an amazing speaker. And I've heard him do a couple of keynote talks, and he talks about how important the counter narrative is. In other words, there's sort of the narrative. There's the things that you tell yourself. There's the typical, 3-point, here's something that, people know or think they know. And that, one of the beauties I think of community engagement is I do think of a lot of our work as counter narrative, with groups working together to, in the trench of a community's common good, to move the needle in a positive direction with regard to some issue. And so I think all the ways he always, I don't know, I heard him just storming on the end of a presentation about how important it is to tell the story and keep telling the story and keep telling the story, and you can't ever stop. So I would encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, to think about disseminating it eventually. It sounds like you're letting folks in, and giving them a space, which I think is fantastic. And then I think, again, if you think about putting that out there, I think that is a really great thing to consider as well.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
As Stephanie was speaking, I was thinking about the nurses. I'm a nursing faculty member, and my heartstrings are really pulled when I watch and listen to nurses and other healthcare providers who are beginning to have a voice in some of the narrative research that's being conducted. But they would also be a really strong group to provide narratives, and the counter narratives would be relevant there too. So I just wanted to give that suggestion also for the library project.
I think that is a wonderful idea, and if you two can connect,
I would love that,
and work together, I think that would be fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. I sometimes think, I do a decent number of these workshops kind of in different places, and it's amazing how there are usually wonderful connections that occur in the room, or, in this case, in a Zoom room. And sometimes it's really just a matter of saying, okay, I'm blocking out these 90 minutes and I'm going to do this thing. So again, thank you all for being here and for thinking about ways that you can collaborate. I think that's great. And it sounds like from what y'all are saying, you have a lot of wonderful ongoing projects with community engagement. And I so strongly encourage you to keep them up, especially now with COVID.